You've Got Mail is one of my all-time favorite movies. Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan were so good together in that one that I still get goosebumps every time I watch it. Plus, the supporting characters were equally wonderful. So why do I bring this up? Because this past week's Hallmark movie had a lot in common with it. Do you remember You've Got Mail came out when email was brand new to all of us? Even the opening scenes show us some dial-up internet to connect with AOL. That seems like forever ago, doesn't it? Well, what's funny about Return to Office is this one starts off with two people writing messages to each other on sticky notes.
I think we got the best seat in the house.
Does anyone still use physical sticky notes anymore? Anyway, how did this new one hold up? Sorry about that. Well, as you can see, we've got a lot to talk about, so let's dive right in and get started. Hi, I'm Stephanie and welcome to the Magical Movie Club. This week on Hallmark Channel, we watched Return to Office starring Janell Parrish and Scott Michael Foster. You might remember Janell Parrish from a couple of movies last year, including Haunted Wedding and Sugar Plummed. It's been a while since we've seen Scott Michael Foster on Hallmark. He was in The Key of Love a few years back with Laura Osnes, but I remember him most as Kristoff from the TV series Once Upon a Time. So, the movie opens in the morning with Liv, played by Janell Parrish, waking up very cheerfully for a workday in my opinion, following a regimented routine with her matcha and breakfast cereal to start her day. And of course, she has a video conference to start things off, where she shows up wearing her slippers and pajama bottoms like we all do, right? Or do we? Now, right before her meeting starts, she gets a call from her best friend, and it's during this conversation where we find out more about what she does.
Hi, Colette. I can't talk too long. I have a video conference in 10.
She's the director of corporate strategy of Omega Technologies, and she's expecting to get a VP promotion this week, but her company has just acquired a new social media startup company called Artist Access, which will undoubtedly delay things a bit, and she feels the brunt of a lot of other responsibilities suddenly falling on her while her boss shifts all of his focus to this new acquisition. And all the while, mind you, she's still awfully cheerful about it. And then we meet Scott Michael Foster's character, Tom, who's a little less organized, and he's running late for the meeting.
Does he know he has to click the link for it to work?
Sorry I'm late, sorry.
He came over as part of the new acquisition as the head designer, and then within maybe 10 seconds after he joins the meeting, we see Liv interrupting Tom to schmooze Walter, the CEO.
I was just saying that I think that,
Tom was just saying how excited the Artist Access.
That happens a lot over the course of the movie, where not only does she interrupt Walter, but Walter interrupts Liv just as much.
So excited, truly.
Liv, can you do me a favor and mute yourself while I'm talking?
Anyway, the real story starts with what happens next. That's when Walter, the CEO, dropped his bombshell announcement.
Is to enact a return to office policy.
Effective this Monday.
It wasn't full-time back in the office though, and that's why this story works. You see, the company didn't even have enough desks in the office to accommodate everyone. So they split their time Monday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Thursday, which means they had to share desks, like we saw from the previews.
So with my luck, I'll be fighting with Chad from HR to not get stuck at a desk by the bathroom.
Now, for what it's worth, here's my 2 cents on what just happened. I read one review that mentioned it was unrealistic for a director of a company to be given a desk like this and not an office. Now, believe it or not, I was just as surprised when the company I worked for was in an office full-time to see that the directors and even the CEO were sitting at desks among all of us too.
Well, yeah, it was, but now Walter's wanting to put me amongst the new folk, get the pulse of things.
For me though, it was the blender right out in the open that didn't seem right.
And we're back.
I mean, can you imagine being on a call when that thing goes off right next to you? Now that seemed unprofessional. But let's continue. At the end of her first day back, Liv put all of her own things away, except she wanted to leave her little succulent plant out on the desk so that it would get enough sunlight. That's what prompted her to write the first sticky note to the mystery person who would be sitting there the next day.
Sincerely, Ms. Monday.
Well, the mystery person is Tom, and yes, the two clashed at first. He's more of a slob, and she's just as OCD about everything being just right.
What is this mess? Are you kidding me?
No idea why there wasn't a cleaning service who would have at least emptied the trash overnight. I don't know, maybe that's not such a common thing anymore. Anyway, she put away all of it, including Tom's artwork. Now, they traded barbs for a while, all the way up until he left a half-eaten sandwich in the drawer over the weekend for her to find on Monday morning.
Much left in a desk drawer with the heat on all weekend creates some very original smells.
That had to be gross. So he apologized with a fancy chocolate pastry, and that's all it took for her to change her opinion of him.
You are totally forgiven.
Clearly, buying a sweet treat changes everything. Well, after a few more notes back and forth, they both started to look forward to them every day, just like in You've Got Mail. But just think, these two were only leaving each other 2 notes a week.
Dear Miss Monday,
I will say, though, that the content of the notes was not super personal. I mean, they laughed at things like having to adjust the chair every day.
Oh.
She also mentions she likes listening to Baroque music to help her relax, things like that.
I think a Bach concerto would be a better soundtrack to the seat falling.
Now, to spice things up a little, one day the boss called everyone into the office for a meeting on the same day. He mentioned it was at the end of the day, so that's got to be why the two didn't sit down or at least put their things down at the same desk together. But it was at this meeting where the boss blindsided everyone by putting Liv in charge of rebranding Tom's company. The two of them met later on to go over their strategy, and I think maybe they both started to appreciate the fact that the boss wasn't really interested in listening to either of them.
From now on, their design team reports to you.
I mean, we know Tom made the wrong impression on him when he was casually asked about his vision for the company.
I just don't have them all like fleshed out right now.
But I'm thinking that even if Tom had given a brilliant answer, the boss would have swept him aside anyway, because that's just the way he did things.
How we can collaboratively come to a consensus.
No need.
Clearly, neither of them felt all that appreciated at the company. Even though the HR guy did everything he could to build some camaraderie in the office. I'll tell you about that in a moment. So, Tom scored some big points with her when, as Mr. Tuesday, he bought her some noise-canceling headphones.
Thank you so much. I feel seen and heard.
So, about HR. This guy was pretty spot on for the role. He's very peppy, always positive, and in that vein, he planned out this whole team-building experience for everyone in the office.
Behold the Omega Tech Game!
Naturally, Liv and Tom are partnered together. I have to admit, though, the games looked kind of fun. I was thinking that had this been a Christmas movie, this is where they would have done something fun together, like baking cookies, building a snowman, ice skating, something like that, which we've seen many times. But since this is a non-seasonal movie, these games were a little different and fun.
You're doing so good! And stop! Okay.
And of course it worked. Liv and Tom started to like each other in person while still not knowing their secret identities. Over the course of the movie, their post-it notes became text messages, so they were finally able to communicate more frequently. Like when Tom was at home working and needed some inspiration for this brand new design.
Thank you so much for the musical advice. And adding candlelit yoga?
It just turned out to be too bad that the CEO was so disagreeable.
Actually, I really hate it.
After a while, they finally agreed to a first date. But then, before the date even happened, Liv figured it out from talking to his mother at the senior home where she volunteers.
He calls her Miss Monday.
So she couldn't go through with the date after all. I mean, she shows up, but she's not honest with him about why she's there. Not that he makes it easy for her to come clean about it.
I mean, you let Walter
trash all my ideas. I kind of need you to have my back in there.
Now, by the end of the movie, you might expect to see Tom get all upset and storm off, never wanting to see her again, only to change his mind the next morning and they all live happily ever after. After all, that's how a lot of Hallmark movies end, isn't it? Well, that's not exactly what happened this time. No, the big conflict near the end actually happens with Walter, the CEO.
Well, here's another storybook ending for you, Walter. I quit.
And this puts Liv in a difficult situation.
Well, unless you want to clean out your desk as well.
By the very end, I loved how we were kept somewhat in suspense as to just how Tom would really handle finding out who Miss Monday really was. You know, kind of like in You've Got Mail, we didn't know how Meg Ryan's character would react to seeing Tom Hanks show up in that flower garden at the very end.
I wanted it to be you so badly.
They even showed us these cute sticky notes in the restaurant, a tribute to how it all started, directing Tom to where to find her. Believe it or not, the first time I watched it, I didn't feel the magic, which really surprised me because overall, it was a wonderful movie. But then get this, when I was finishing up writing this review, I rewatched the ending, which I typically do, and that's when I felt the goosebumps.
Is that really you?
Do you want it to be?
It was really something, and I went back and actually rewrote parts of my review because of it. As I write this, the current rating on IMDb is a 6.8, and this time I completely agree with that. We're not always in sync, but after the rewatch, I enjoyed it very much, particularly because it wasn't just one character who had the big transformation. Liv and Tom started out as complete opposites, and over the course of the movie, they learned to appreciate one another, and that led to some deeper feelings by the end. Not to mention, I always love a good cameo by another Hallmark star. Well, I think that wraps up my review of Return to Office. Next up, I'll be watching and discussing Hallmark's Sisterhood, Inc., starring Rachel Lee Cook, who's made quite a few movies for Hallmark. But if I had to guess, I'd say her biggest one is Rescuing Christmas. Until then, and as always, thank you so much for being a part of the Magical Movie Club. If you like this too and want to see more, please let me know by hitting the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you're interested, I have links to the preview video as well as the movie page for more details about Return to Office in the description below. I'll be back next week to chat more about our favorite magical movies.
So, give it a little squeeze, like this.
Oh.
Ooh.